Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Sam and Michelle on the podcast. They're from Supreme Minority. They're here to talk to us a little bit about that and also about their health and fitness journeys. They're also coming to us all the way from the UK. They're all the way in Leeds. We love having some international guests come on the podcast, but most importantly, they're our current guests. Sam and Michelle, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So first of all, what's the weather like in the UK today? I mean, we can see it a little bit from since you're in your car, but what's the weather like?
It is grey and it's cold.
And
Pretty
wet.
standard for UK weather, really.
Well, I was gonna say,
October.
are you really even in the UK if it's not cloudy, basically?
You'd be worrying if it was sunny in the background.
Oh well, yeah, it's the same. It's the same thing here. We're starting to get to the cold part of the year. So yeah, it's the dreary part. But before I depress everyone, with our winter woes, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory, each of you, on what inspired and what motivated you to get in shape and adapt this lifestyle?
Well, for me, I started about 10 years ago with my bodybuilding. Before that, I used to do a lot of cardio, a lot of distance running, mainly just to keep fit. But I got really injured doing a half marathon and decided that was it. I didn't want to do cardio anymore, but obviously wanted to be in shape. So I started weight training with a male friend of mine at the gym. So obviously just started with the bodybuilding ways and haven't looked back really. Started competing in 2016 and 3 weeks ago I got my IFBB Pro card. So yeah, pretty happy now.
And then for me, it was probably a little bit of a different journey, but I was kind of bullied in school for being overweight and I never really fit in. So around the age of 15, 16, when I could, had a bit more freedom and money, I joined the gym. But for me, I kind of went the wrong way quite quickly in terms of being on the treadmill too much, and I developed a multitude of eating disorders. Got to the instance that I injured myself due to my frailty of that eating disorder. So I broke my foot and eventually kind of got myself into a position where I thought, I need to change. Obviously that's when social media kind of then kicked off and could see all these people coming through like Michelle Lewin. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be a better way to do this that looks healthier and incorporates more of a fitness mindset with things. So that was the kick-off of my entry into the bodybuilding world. I've probably done everything under the sun in terms of trying different fitness methodologies, whether it's just cardio, doing classes, CrossFit, powerlifting.
Triathlon.
I went through a triathlon stint as well. But yeah, I think bodybuilding is the one thing I always come back to, kind of where the passion lies really for me.
I try just hearing the word triathlons makes me cringe. I mean, that's ugh. I had a friend that did that. I had a friend that did that too, and I was like, "You are absolutely crazy! Like, how do you do that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's fun. It helps me stay in shape." And I was like, "Oh my god, jeez."
Yeah, the bike, yeah, that's fine. The run, I can kind of comprehend, but for me, it was the swim. I used to swim in school, but yeah, I have a chronic recurring shin splints, so that stopped that dream. So
I had shin splints when I was like 15, and that's not fun, especially when it comes to anything that has to do with running or swimming. But how did you two guys meet? How did you guys meet and then decide that you guys wanted to get this Supreme Minority started together?
We actually met on a bodybuilding stage when we first competed together.
She beat me.
In 2017, we did the PCA, which is quite a big federation here. Sam was actually moved into my category. I came first, she came second. And then obviously we started talking. We went to the finals together. And then we've been really good friends ever since. We support each other through our comps. Like I say, become firm friends and now business partners. So,
yeah, there's not a day goes by. Generally, if we don't talk, it's generally due to my work that we don't talk. And if not, we speak every single day pretty much. So yeah, we've been a complete support mechanism for each other over the last good year or so now. And yeah, that's where it kind of led to with building Supreme.
Mhm.
Now, I have a lot of bands also on this podcast, so I love to ask what the inspiration is behind band names. What's the inspiration behind Supreme Minority? How'd you guys come up with that name?
It took
So,
a while.
yeah, a lot of back and forth with some crazy ideas. Obviously, the S and the M is for our initials, and we wanted to really find something that would be kind of embodied what we were looking to achieve in terms of, basically the empowerment and, it's, being individual as well, not always wanting to, go along with the masses and being comfortable in yourself as an individual.
Because as a female bodybuilder, you kind of are within a minority, really, aren't you? And a lot
Yeah.
of people don't understand what we do, why we do, how we do, why would you want to look like that? And so yeah, it's kind of embracing that and showing that, it's a powerful thing really, and there's lots more to it than just going in the gym lifting weights. It's all about mindset, self-belief, confidence, which kind of grows the more you grow in the gym, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all linked.
So we are here to build a tribe of Supremes.
And that's so awesome. And a question that I love to ask all my health and fitness guests when they come on the podcast is that, I always say if you're to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. And I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, what'd you train for this body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you. Was that a struggle for both of you, sort of figuring out what worked best for your body? Because I always find that it's such a timed process where you're just constantly trying to evolve and figure out what works best for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Michelle will tell you that I'm very much an instantaneous person. I expect everything right now or yesterday. Michelle always reins me in with that thought process. So
I was
yeah,
going to
for
say you chose the
me,
wrong sport if you chose bodybuilding if you're an instantaneous person.
well, I know, yeah. I've learned along the way. I mean, for me, I've always used coaches, and I've used a couple of coaches just due to the fact that I like to experiment with what other people's methods and ways are, just to see if there is something that fits better. I know that a lot of people will advocate sticking with one coach for a long period of time, but then I'm very much like, well, yeah, what's broke, don't fix it, whatever which way it is. But it's, for me, I like to just explore what methods are out there just to see if something does work better the next time, to constantly find those like 1% marginal gains. But yeah, Michelle's self-coached, and hats off to that.
Yeah. Well, for me, because when I started training, I never ever thought I would get on stage and compete. I did it because I enjoyed the mental health benefits. In terms of making me feel good, switching off. I'm a single mum. I have a 12-year-old son. And so the only thing I do for me is go to the gym. I don't go out often with friends. I don't go out drinking and socialise. And the only thing I do for me is go to the gym. So if I was to never compete again, I would still go to the gym because it's therapy for me. So for me, it's just consistency, like doing the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. Over the years, the thing that has changed is nutrition. Obviously, becoming more aware of how important nutrition is, because anyone can go in the gym and throw some weights around. It's what you do when you're out of the gym, nutrition, recovery, um, therapeutic recovery, so massage, that kind of thing. I'm still not kind of keen on stretching, but I'm getting there.
Who is?
But yeah, so it's kind of as time goes on, you learn more and you can kind of implement more. In terms of straight training styles, it's you stick to the basics. You don't overcomplicate it. Rep ranges might change. Rest, pause, forced reps, drop sets, that kind of thing. But ultimately, the exercises that you do and the frequency in which you do it is what you have to. That's the most important thing. Nothing fancy. Keep it simple. But just keep going with it.
Well, I love that you talked about, not going out, because that's another big thing that people don't realize is that, when you guys are in these preps getting ready for these shows, you cannot go out and, hang out with friends as much. That's another bit of the social aspect that people don't realize is that bodybuilders do tend to lose, but it just, again, in my opinion, shows all of the hard work and dedication that has to go into it. But you talked about it a little bit just now, but what were some of the biggest nutritional changes that you both had to make when it came to adapting this lifestyle? Because so many people don't realize, that like the saying goes, abs are made in the kitchen. The nutrition aspect is so important when it comes to this lifestyle.
So I think for me, obviously having had eating disorders in the past, I've always been quite aware of what's gone into my body in that respect. And for me, it was actually learning to eat again to actually start fueling my body properly. And that's kind of why for me it was important to actually get a coach, because once someone gives me a plan and says you have to eat this, then I'll make sure that I do it, because I know that it's for the best intentions, a purpose.
But I
And then
guess having the permission to eat as well,
yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
like
And it,
saying someone saying, you are allowed to eat, it's fine. So for me, I think that was the biggest thing to start off with, of actually being allowed to eat again, and fueling the body to actually become functional. For me, as my job, I actually work as in medical sales, so I'm in the OR a lot, and I work for, obviously being in a big corporate company, the harder side for me is to actually get other people to understand how I eat. I've
why
done it
are you
for
eating that?
why are
So?
you eating chicken and broccoli again? So I've food prepped for years anyway. So for me, prepping food, it's sometimes nice to have a bit of time off. Like at the minute, I'm having a bit more of a flexible time period. But I've always prepped my food for the last 7, 8, 9 years. It's a case of I'm just used to doing that anyway. So for me, it's more getting other people to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. And the restrictive prep times that I have, it's just for a set period of time, and then I'll start to look at reintroducing the naughty foods, which we obviously shouldn't be labeling them as. It's all in moderation. But yeah, I mean, depending on how I've prepped or what I've eaten during that prep can cause something. Obviously Michelle can touch on as well, is the kind of the intolerances that you can actually get if you cut so many foods out during a prep, depending on obviously how your coach has you eating. For me, I think one of the last times, not last year, but the year before that, I did a 12-month prep. I did 8 shows in a year, made it to the universe, and after that I couldn't eat any dairy. The slightest little spoon of dairy for me, I would just bloat up like a big balloon. My stomach was absolute agony. So I had to find ways then of reintroducing, dairy-based products into my diet, without feeling really, really poorly afterwards.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so for Michelle, it's quite a
Yeah, it's a common, because I have a lot of issues with my stomach and digestion. It got so bad last year I didn't think I would compete. And because I won the British Championships last year, but it was a real struggle, and I was quite ill afterwards. Was at hospital quite a lot. I still haven't quite got to the bottom of what the problem is. But I just have to be very, very careful with what I eat. So this year, when I was prepping, I kept a very varied diet. I ate things that I wouldn't normally have during a prep, and that's helped. But now I've literally just come off season in the last 2 weeks, and I'm suffering massively. And it's not that I'm putting a lot of different foods in; I'm gradually putting things in, but I'm really struggling. So I'm doing a lot of reading at the moment about gut health, and just trying to work through it myself, because our the NHS, our National Health Service, when it comes to dealing with stomach problems like that, you just kind of fobbed off, so to speak. So that's something I'm working through at the moment. But again, it has helped the fact that I didn't take everything out of my diet this year. I did keep a good variation in there. I didn't go 0 carbs or anything like that. Kept fats quite high. So I'm not suffering as much as I did last year, but I am still suffering. But I think it's a common thing in bodybuilding, because we are so restrictive. And when you spend like 4 months, 5 months dieting, there is going to be implications afterwards. So
Well, and I always said that gut health is such an undervalued study that, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Before I started this podcast, I knew nothing about gut health, and I didn't even know that it was a thing, that people studied it, and the effects that it happened. But I've had, I think, 3 gut health experts on the podcast, and just hearing everything that can happen when it comes to, like you were talking about, the dieting down to your nutrition, how that can affect your gut. I mean, it's so fascinating. I think more people definitely need to look into that, because it, like you said, I mean, it affects so many people. We've had so many guests come on and talk about gut health issues that they might have had when competing or just in their everyday life. So I mean, I highly recommend everyone get into that. But the most underappreciated thing that I don't think many people don't realize is, I always say, for the vast majority of the competitors that I've had on the podcast, posing for them is the hardest thing. I mean, it's harder than your working out. It's harder than your nutrition. I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a good poser. You can never be a perfect poser. You can be a good driver. You can never be a perfect driver. I mean, it's always ever evolving. What has your guys' experience been like with posing? Has it gotten easier as your journey has gone on?
Definitely got easier. When I look back at when I very first started, I just think, oh my God, my posing was horrendous. But it's a confidence thing as well. And it's as you learn your body. And each year, different poses suit me more than they did previous year, because obviously as your body's changing. But for me, it's just pose and practice regularly. Even in the morning when I was getting dressed, I would do my quarter turns, my compulsories, just as I was getting dressed. Posing like every evening. But yeah, it is hard. Like obviously when you've got to like contract every muscle in your body at the same time and smile.
Yeah, always forget to smile.
Yeah, me too. And I would literally be like sweating and just like panting, and it's, people don't realize how hard it is. I suffer horrendously with cramps in my quads and my calves as well. So every time I'm posing, I'm like, I've got my videos, and then there you go, catch me in a cramp. And yeah, and obviously this year it was different because I went into physique. So I was able to pose without heels, which makes a massive difference. I can't wear heels anyway. I'm like Bambi on ice when I wear heels. So I was so pleased that I didn't have to wear heels, because you can hit your poses so much easier. But yeah, practice. And both myself and Sam have actually gone and had sessions with Emma Heineman, who's the posing pro, and she's amazing. And I think even just one session was enough for me, because you can record it and she kind of takes you through everything, and then just practice. That's all you can. There's nothing more you can do other than practice. And not in front of a mirror as well, because people make that mistake. They're always practicing in front of a mirror, and then when you're on stage, you haven't got a mirror. So yeah, and it just over time you become more confident, like you say, more in touch with your body. But it's always something that you're going to have to practice, even off season, when
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got so I'm off season and potentially having another 12 months off into next year, but I've got my session booked with Emma in a couple of weeks actually as well, because it's one of those things that you can, it's once you get back into it again, it's like riding a bike, but there's also always tweaks to be made in terms of optimizing your body and your stance, and like say, like showing off certain body parts. As in when you start dieting down, it does change every year. Like some years for me, my abs come in straight away. Sometimes you get striation in your glutes, and some years, depending on injury, you can't flare your lats as much. So Emma will work with us to try and, obviously with sports massage as well, in terms of making sure you're optimizing every single body part and every pose.
And I'm really wonky as well. Like my left side, my shoulder drops. So being aware of that when you're on stage, to remember to kind of lift and kind of, and it's really hard because you feel like you're doing it right, but then you look at pictures, you think, whoa.
I'm really wonky donkey.
I mean, I always find that fascinating, because the hardest, I mean, it's hard enough as is if you were, eating properly and had, your proper nutrition. But when you guys are all dieted down for the shows, the fact that you're still able to do that when your mind is fuzzy, and I mean, we have so many prep brain stories on here that I can't even count. But it's just so fascinating, and it's such. I mean, it's mind-boggling that you guys are still able to do that. But you kind of led me perfectly into my favorite question that I love to ask, because everyone's genetics are differently. So when anyone gets started in the gym, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, and that one body part that just lags behind, that they have to train into oblivion to get it to catch up. I mean, I'll give you mine first. I mean, my back, just because I had jobs all throughout college of, lifting and loading boxes into trucks. And, you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those were the two options that presented themselves to you. But I'm also 6'3". So, I mean, my legs and my lower body are just shot, where, I mean, I have to train them into overdrive just to make them look like there's any semblance that I train legs. I mean, I still have those friends when I walked in the gym that say, "Oh, hey, Ryan, you plan on training legs anytime this year?" And then it's like, "Oh, yeah, I train legs 3 times a week, guys." And it's the same joke all the time. But what were those body parts for you guys when you started working out?
I think for me, when I first started, so in terms of actually dieting down and getting lean, just as a female in general, legs will always be the one thing for me. That's where I instantly put the weight back on quick, around my hips, around my bum. around the top of my legs. But obviously, depending on the federation I've then gone into, because I started off more kind of fitness model and then moved into figure as I've gone along over the last like 5-6 years. So for me, it's, building more that X frame. So I've naturally got quite big legs. I don't find it too much of an issue to gain muscle on my legs. So for me, I have to balance my upper body. So making sure that I'm constantly trying to push my, delt growth, my lat growth, to get wide and X framed. My abs, I never train abs. My abs always come in. That's never an issue for me. That's my easy part. So
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm just one of those typical guys where, I mean, every single drink that I have goes straight to my gut. So, just hearing that just breaks my heart. But Michelle, what were those body parts for you?
Aesthetically, my back's always been my strongest body part. I've got quite a wide back, and shoulders. Like, it was a bit of a joke. I used to just use my shoulders no matter what I was training. It would be my shoulders were taking over. So I had to work really hard to kind of not use my shoulders for like training arms and stuff. Legs have always been my weakness. But I have actually this year I've been training legs with Wendy McCready.
Yeah, she was on the podcast earlier this year.
Excellent. So I've been training quads with her every weekend. So my quads have grown. I could say to say my quads have grown.
Yeah.
But also I need to work on my hamstrings because for me I'm very glute dominant. I've got a very big backside.
It's a beautiful booty.
I'm just very glute dominant. So again, training with Wendy, she's really helped me kind of use my quads rather than my glutes. So this off season, hamstrings are going to be a big focus for me, as well as obviously quads. Quads will always be a big focus. Arms, I need to bring up my arms. I think because my shoulders are quite big now, it makes my arms look a lot smaller than they actually are. And this year I did train abs off season, and I had much better abs this year, Sam. So
I know. I'm going to be throwing them in soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Marginal gains.
Yeah.
I was going to say, you train with Wendy McCready, you're going to get results. I mean, I'll leave a link to that podcast that I did with her down below. She was great to talk to. But yeah, I always just find that fascinating. I mean, I always say calves are probably my number one pet peeve just because that's the number one genetic thing where, I mean, you're either born with them or you're born without them. I mean, I always said I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't gain an ounce. Oh God, yeah. We had one lady who then put her calves up to the screen. I was like, okay, get off my podcast. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like that yeah. It's like you're bad now. You're just making me feel bad. But yeah, I just find that so fascinating because everyone's body is different. Because especially in this day and age where everyone always says like, oh, I want his arms or I want her back or something. They don't realize that you can just be the best version of yourself. I mean, you don't know what that person does to get that look. So yeah, I just love to promote that message. But going off that too, I mean, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. The number one myth and stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast. I always say it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there are just still so many women that have that fear where if they go to the gym, they pick up one weight, they're just going to put on, a massive amount of muscle overnight. And I always say to that, first of all, good luck. And second of all, I'll give you my number and I'll call you and I'll pay you as much money as you want just to talk to you for 5 minutes because you have found the secret that, me and so many people are looking for. Did either of you have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you guys like to respond to that when you hear that?
I hear that. I work in education, predominantly females, and they'll always say to me, oh, well, I would go to the gym and lift, but I don't want to get too big. And I'm like, oh, it's taken me 10 years and I'm still not big enough. Like, it's really not that easy. It's really not that easy. So yeah, just reminds them of like the hormonal difference between men and women, that, we are not built to build muscle easily. It takes a bloody lot of hard work and consistency and years to build muscle. But yeah, I really wish it was that easy.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously being like probably more like, I don't find it too hard to gain muscle lower body, and obviously because I spent such a big amount of time trying to actually get rid of that, having my eating disorders, that obviously, when I actually started training, I saw quite a big difference quite quickly. So for me, it was a little bit not scary, but it was that sort of acceptance of, those quick body changes. But then you do get to that certain point of where you really, really have to push yourself every single session to make sure that, you want to be feeling like you can't get up and down the stairs every time, because you know that you're actually starting to promote some growth or something's happening in your body. I miss those feelings when you don't get them anymore. But yeah, people
But I
really
think
don't.
that's where, because I've kind of mainly trained with men,
Mm.
and I think because I learned to train bodybuilding with a man, I thought that that's just how you train, and I would try and keep up with them. So now when like I do have friends that train with me, like female friends, I know that they just don't have that intensity and they won't go to failure and they can't push past failure because they're scared about how they might look and they might make a noise, and when they do train with me, they love it. They're in agony afterwards. But it's like, I think that's for me, that's how I've learned to train properly, training with a man and trying to keep up in terms of weight. And that's how you get the muscle growth. It's kind of like going to failure and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all in the mind as well, because your body does give out before your head does. It's kind of like, right, I'm going to get this rep. I'm going to show you. I'm not going to let you beat me. I'm going to get the rep. So I think that's where my success in terms of building muscles come from as well. Is kind of the people that I've trained with, the people that I look to that inspire me. And for example, Wendy McCready, she's amazing in terms of like your mindset around your training as well. Just believing that you can do it, don't give up, keep going, keep pushing. And I think that's where a lot of females don't have that, because they have that fear about how they're going to look, because we're not girly girls in the gym. Like, we don't come out there looking pretty. We come out there looking like we've been dragged through a hedge. So yeah, I think that's part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
That fear of like looking a bit
disheveled.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to counter that by saying, probably one of the biggest things that I think impacts women so much more than it does men, and you touch base on this just a tad bit, but is the confidence boost that it gives women when they start working out. I mean, we've heard so many stories on this podcast of women who have, been able to make life-changing decisions, or it just helped them overall just be more assertive, or it just helped them in every single aspect of their lives. How has that confidence boost impacted your guys' lives? Because I always say that is the one thing that you can take from the gym and use that to impact your whole life.
I think for me, the eating disorder side was still a big part of that as well, I guess. And, that came about from being probably in quite a hard part of my life where someone was trying to control me, led me to believe that working or doing a certain career was, the right way to go. So actually finding the gym and being able to, I've always been quite an independent person anyway, but that's probably a period in my life when I felt quite dependent on someone due to obviously how he made me feel. It kind of did empower me to realize that I can achieve, whatever I put my mind to. I think that's the good thing about bodybuilding, is that I'd set myself a goal and I was gonna get there. It gave me a time scale to do it on, breaking things down into bite-sized chunks. People always talk about, setting like a smart objective, and I do that day in, day out for my career. He wasn't at the time supportive of me then going into my medical career that I do now. And I've got to talk to quite bolshy, egotistical surgeons every day. So being able to do what I do, and they have, quite a few of my surgeons I'm quite close with now anyway, they've got the admiration of what I actually do on the side, and they respect me for that. We can have masses of chats about even, dieting and fitness, and they, talking to high level consultants, and even they are clueless as to the actual, well, I think like the Krebs cycle. You ask me about the Krebs cycle and they're like, what? You're explaining nutrition to a surgeon, macros, and you just think, what is going on? So yeah, it's that empowerment and that knowledge that you can gain, and as well as obviously like I think when I first started in bodybuilding, it was a little bit isolated. Social media were just fully kicking off, and it maybe did spark at that time for me quite that comparison phase of, oh, I'm not good enough. She looks better. I want her body. Blah 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 blah. And obviously that's where a lot of the supreme mindset came from, with us setting up that together of stop comparing. Along the way of bodybuilding as well, you do find really, really close friends, and you become like quite united with those around you, and it really does kind of harbour like a true sense of kind of belonging to a certain set of, certain group of people. And then you can start chatting about, setting each other little tasks of how much you like pressing, especially off season. It's like always that push, let's go harder. So it really it gives you that real sense of what the body can really do. You know, you kind of push yourself to certain limits, and you've only got to really admire, you know, what your body's capable of, really.
Michelle, what was that change like for you? That confidence boost. How are you able to use that?
I've always kind of lacked confidence and self-belief. I've always been for my life, like, I'll never be able to do that. I can't do that. And then obviously with bodybuilding, it's kind of it's something a bit different, isn't it? It makes you stand out a little bit. Um, so then you're different to other people, and then kind of it builds your confidence when you see the changes, and you think, oh well, actually I can do something. I can do that. I can achieve that. And as time's gone on, it has really helped, like in terms of mindset and believing in myself. And again, with my job, I work with children with emotional, behavioural, mental health issues. So you've got to be very mentally strong to do that job as well. So that coupled with like bodybuilding, again, I think you'll really underestimate mindset. I really
Massive
do.
part.
And again, that kind of links in nice with what we're doing with Supreme. It's that kind of self-belief. Stop limiting yourself and what you can and you can't do, especially if it's based on other people's judgment. Because even now, some of the things that Sam and I are doing, at the back of my mind, it's still kind of, oh, well, what will such and such think? What will people think if I do that? And now I'm like, well, actually, I don't care. Because, what we're doing, it's not only it's helping us, it's helping other females as well. And yeah, so it's just, yeah.
No, and that's so great. And then the last question that I have before we really dig into Supreme Minority is, I mean, obviously you two aren't the average looking woman when it comes to because of bodybuilding. I mean, I always find fascinating, like if you go out in public and you're really in prep and you're really in shape, how have you guys adjusted to the comments or maybe the looks that you get? I mean, because you do kind of become like a human art exhibit, which is I kind of like to say, like even if you're walking out in public, just where people are just so fascinated by it. What has that experience been like for you? And has it been weird adjusting to the fact that you kind of are like a mini celebrity then when you walk out because you draw so many people's attentions?
I think female bodybuilders and pregnant ladies have a lot in common. But it's strange because for me, in the gym, when I'm off season, like people in the gym don't really speak to me when I'm fat. And then when I'm shredded, everyone wants to talk, when you don't want to talk to anybody because you haven't got the energy to talk to anybody, everybody wants to come and talk to you. So yeah, it is a bit odd, like the looks that you get. Like at work, I tend to keep covered up. And it's not because anything would be said. I just don't like to draw that attention to myself. And the rare occasion that I have, like taking a cardigan off or something like that, like I do draw a few stares, and the kids get a little bit freaked out by my veins and things like that. And when I'm out with my son, there's been a few occasions where we've been in a shop and he's kind of caught someone kind of taking the mick, kind of like being a bit rude about me. And it does kind of get to him sometimes, and will defend me. Whereas I'll just say, leave it, just forget it. It's like, I'm not bothered. I'm really not. So yeah, you kind of get used to the stares. As well as some of the negative comments. I have actually overheard women in a changing room saying how disgusting I look and things like that. And I get the way we look isn't for everybody, and we're not trying to force that on anybody. But I just think, I would never comment on how, if someone was overweight or someone was, I would never do that. And I just think people don't seem to apply that to bodybuilders, or, they just think it's fine to be offensive.
Yeah.
Or shout steroids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, I just think you just get used to it, and you have to just accept it's going to happen, that people are going to stare. Some people are really positive. Some will say, oh, I wish I had your arms. And, they'll ask what you do, and they'll say they really admire it. And whereas you get the negatives as well.
Yeah, I think for me, I actually don't always like the attention. And I do kind of just go into my own little bubble when I'm prepping. So I will be, or I can look quite ignorant. So anyone that's obviously seen me looking quite ignorant, that's generally. So for me in the gym, I love to just put my headphones on, and I will look like that antisocial cow sometimes. Apologies, but yeah, I like to just keep my head down and try and remove myself from any kind of negativity. Obviously when I first started, it used to actually really, really upset me, and that's kind of why I just sort of, I try and block it off and move on. And yeah, like Michelle said, it's people that seem to just think they can come over and just touch you sometimes, and I'm like, hello, all right, it's £5, please.
Ask first.
Yeah, I'm gonna start charging. But yeah, I think as well for me in the off season, I kind of just keep covered up. I have again heard like working in a hospital, I got to change into my blues, into my scrubs, and one of the girls had basically said something about how masculine I looked because of my size. And I'm like, well, actually, if you compare me to any other person in that hospital, you'd never probably guess I was actually a bodybuilder compared to some of the nurses I have to work alongside with, that are overweight. But do I say anything in return? No. Don't judge. You don't know what's going on in that person's life. So, yeah, unless you've done it there, you've done it yourself and you've been there, you've got no right to comment. So,
Absolutely. I always said it was fascinating for me when I was in college. You'd always have, the drunk girls at bars come up and feel your arms, and you'd just be like, "Oh yeah, that's my arm, by the way." But I'm gonna be honest, I was a little vain back then, so I'd pump it up for them a little bit. They'd ask for a show, they'd receive a show, but those are the college days. But yeah, I just like you guys were pointing out, I always love to bring up that point where you would never say that to an obese person, like, "Oh my God, you need to lose weight, like you look ugly and disgusting." I just find that so funny that like a lot of people just find that it's fair season on people that work out and people that take care of themselves. I mean, it's just I always find that point so fascinating, and yeah, that's why I love to bring up that question. But so supreme minority, I always love to ask people that start their own business or start up anything, because I started up this podcast. What was probably the biggest challenge that you guys had in starting this up, and how did you guys overcome it?
We're still at that point.
Yeah.
So we both work full time, and with Michelle obviously working in a school, she can't be on her phone during the day. I'm obviously in the operating rooms, shouldn't be on my phone all day. But yeah, for us, it's been more of a how do we do it in the time that we've got left. I mean, obviously Michelle, when we started it, was on prep as well. So it took some real frigging brain power, didn't it, at times.
Wasn't fully functioning, but
But I think that's kind of been the beauty of how we've set it up as well amongst the two of us, is that there's always going to be peaks and troughs in life, and we've just bounced off each other and able to be pick each other up when needed, and where I've needed to take on more, then I've just done it. It's the case of we're doing this for us, so we've just balanced it out along the way so far. We have, as of today, I've started working with Rob Latty. He's a business coach, mindset coach here in the UK, does work international as well. And for us, that's kind of just going to guide now and give us a bit more structure in terms of how we push the business forward to actually reach the target audience that we want to reach, out of our own little personal, locational bubbles, really. But yeah, it's not been easy, but we're slowly getting there.
So if we were to look a year into the future, where would you like Supreme Minority to be at? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
It's a big one.
It's great to reach.
Yeah,
just
I think
help as many people as possible. Like I say, just helping to empower women, to feel more confident about themselves, in terms of the mental wealth, achieving their own personal goals, not feeling restricted or held back, particularly by societal norms.
Yeah, massive one.
If there's something you want to do, why can't you do it?
Yeah.
Why can't you? And again, in terms of the fitness side, is mental health within the fitness industry is huge. A lot of the topics we cover are around that, and just getting people talking about it, because not enough people talk about the downside of the fitness industry. It's, for all its health and fitness, at times it's not healthy at all.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of helping to balance that. And we can only balance it really and address it if people actually are open up and talking about some of the things that they themselves experience. And Sam and I we're very transparent, and we do talk about our own personal experiences. And we get a lot of messages back, and we get a lot of feedback, just saying how much it's helped, and oh my God, I'm so glad you feel that way, and I just didn't realize that I could do this. And it's then signposting on, because we're very clear that we're not medical experts. I do have some qualifications in terms of the mental health side of things, but I would never try and counsel people. I would signpost if I feel like they needed like professional help, and that goes for all aspects around training, dieting, all sorts. Like if it's something that we can't help with, we know people that can help. So yeah, just getting that message out there, really, that in terms of this community, we're all part of it. We all suffer certain things and go through certain things, and why shouldn't we talk about it and try and help each other out by sharing experiences?
Yeah, and I think in the next 12 months, it will be a case of, when people come to think of female empowerment and female mindset, is to be more of a household name of direction for people to turn to. We, in ourselves as well, we want to be able to give back to charity in some way as well, which is, the 12-month goal of starting to be able to do that through the clothing line to donate back where we can. And for myself, I mean, I am a qualified PT and I've got nutritional qualifications as well, so I can do that side. But for me, that's not my true passion, because I think if people aren't in the right mindset to do that on the first instance, then why are you pushing money into trying to get into the gym or trying to eat a certain way when you're not fully ready in your mind to embrace that? And I think it's creating that awareness to get that in check first before pushing yourself to do something that in your mind you're not ready to do or ready to commit to. And for me, that's hopefully going to lead down the line of doing more of a mindset coaching role in future. It's that's my 12-month goal, to perhaps remove myself from the medical industry by that point.
I mean, so many people don't understand that it's so much more a mental game than it is a physical game when it comes to health and fitness. I mean, the body, you can work out a lot. I mean, you can go to your workouts and get done, but the mental aspect, I mean, we've talked to so many bodybuilders about how that is the trickiest thing, just the mental adjustments and just trying to convince yourself and just doing all the mental aspects. It's so much more important than the physical aspects. So I love that you are talking about that. And I mean, I highly recommend everyone go and check you guys out. But the last few questions that I have, I mean, I always find it fascinating when people get into bodybuilding and there's always something that really shocks them that they didn't expect about the sport. What was one thing that each of you guys, when you first got started with bodybuilding, really surprised you that you would have never thought about in bodybuilding?
For me, when I first started, I didn't realize, probably in that particular federation I first chose to compete with, how bitchy it was, firstly, of
Political.
which, again, we are trying to be part of the change with that. But I think also the importance of post-show prepping, that reversal out, and not just with food, but your training as well, how to reverse that out. You can't just, end a show on the weekend and go back to lifting just as much as you expected to be when you first started. Your strength's not there, your body's not in a good place. You need to rest and recover your body and build that back up. And again, that's with mindset, not expecting everything again overnight. It's about the process that you've done to that point to get to that weight. You've got to then go and stagger it back up again along, it's a linear cycle back up. So I think that was my biggest takeaway. I mean, I had massive binge eating problems afterwards with my first show, and I'm still at the point now where I do have them episodes, but every single prep I do, I'm getting better and better at the reversal out of that show. So for me, that's probably my main thing, is for people to be aware of, obviously, the aftermath. Don't just think of getting to the stage. Think of, right, how am I going to get back to normality?
Yeah. Same as Sam, really, kind of just how clicky it can be, and that appears to if you do know people and you get seen on the circuit, that you're quite present on social media, that you attend shows, that you speak to people, because a friend of mine who is a judge did actually say, if you've got a lineup with like 20 plus girls, you're naturally going to gravitate and look at the ones that you're actually familiar with and you recognize. It's just human nature, when they haven't got long to judge you. So I think as time's gone on, obviously you are more present. And I don't mean kind of licking the judge's backside. I just mean being present at shows, kind of being present on social media and networking and that kind of thing. So people kind of become familiar with your face and who you are, so that you do get seen. So there was that. And it, yeah, like kind of post show, in terms of how you manage food. And again, for me, it's, you've gone from being very, very regimented on prep, literally every minute of your day is accounted for, And then when you finish prep, you've suddenly got a lot more time on your hands. And I think it takes a bit of a mental adjustment as well to like, well, what should I do now then? You know, I've got all
what's
this
next?
time. I'm used to being like, you've got to do this at this time, then you're doing this, and then you're doing this, and then you're going to have 4 hours sleep, and then that's it. So it's adjusting to take back to a normal
Freedom.
routine, yeah. And then kind of for some people, it's building back up those relationships that you might have just ruined during prep because you've like not had time, you've not had the mental capacity to deal with, and you can't be bothered and you can't go out, you
Yeah.
know. So there's that side of it as well. And I think you've got to prepare those around you that there are going to be times where you're just going to be a bit switched off because you're very tunnel vision, and you kind of live in a bubble.
Bubble world.
And it's not until afterwards you come out. Not as bad for me because I think I personally manage prep very, very well. I just get a bit tired, but otherwise I'm just the same. Like I don't go really quiet. I'm not irritable with people. I'm not moody, and it's just my time's more constrained. But I think for some it can really ruin relationships, friends, partners. So it's just preparing people as well that during that time you are going to be a little bit kind of limited in terms of what you can do and be for people. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, yeah, those are things that I really find fascinating about the sport. That I mean, just the dedication and the sacrifice that it requires. That I mean, just adds even more to the respect that I have, and that people are able to go and compete. Just because I mean, it does take out so much of you. But now there's going to be a lot of people listening to this podcast that are going to be thinking about maybe starting their own fitness journey and getting in shape. What's the best piece of advice that you like to give people? Just how to get started, because for so many people taking that first step is the hardest thing when it comes to getting started in their journey.
Just start. Just go to the gym, like find somebody to go with a friend, but just start, because the more you do it, the better you'll feel about yourself, the more confident you'll feel, and then before you know it, it's part of your routine, and it's kind of then you're doing it. It's just having the confidence to say, right, okay, this is what I want. I really want it. If you want it bad enough, you'll do it. But it does always help if you've got someone just to kind of to hold your hand initially. And kind of if you're looking on social media and things like that to get ideas and to kind of who to listen to, it's like just limit yourself to a couple of people. Don't try and watch what everyone's doing and do what everyone's doing, because then it will become overwhelming and confusing. So kind of find just like 2 or 3 people that you think, okay, I can try that, I'll do that.
You trust.
Yeah.
I think from my side as well, it's like I get it a lot with friends that I work with that don't train or eat healthy. So for me, my general advice with them is start on one of them first. Don't try and do everything at once, because nothing's going to stick then. You've got to try and either sort your diet out or start training first, get into that routine, and then start building other parts in. Just don't go and try and change everything about your life in 24 hours, because it's just you're not going to
fail and you'd give up.
You're setting yourself up for failure then. So I think that's my thing, is choose one or the other first, and then like Michelle said, just start.
I mean, I couldn't agree more at all. Every journey begins just with one simple step. And is there anyone that you guys would like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Just to Wendy, because she's competing at in Romania this weekend. So yeah, fingers crossed, because she could qualify for the Olympia next year. Now female bodybuilding is back, and I'd absolutely love to see her up on that stage, and hopefully Sam and I'll be there watching.
Yes.
So yeah.
But there's in terms of other people, we could be here all day. But basically, anybody that's been part of facilitating where we're at currently with Supreme, but also wherever we've been in terms of competing, everybody that we've met on our journey to this point, you've had an impact on where we are now. So just a huge thank you to everybody that's touched our lives at some point in the last 4 or 5 years, really, that's kind of brought us to this point. So thank you.
And for anyone who's interested, I mean, I'll leave the link down below to their YouTube channel for Supreme Minority, their Instagram account. Are there any other ways besides those two that people could find it?
So we are the Supreme Minority on Instagram, the Supreme Minority on Facebook. Our personal Facebooks they're linked as well, but we've also got our YouTube channel as well.
And website.
And our website as well.
Awesome. So again, I'll leave all those links down below. And again,
Thank you.
Sam and Michelle, we cannot thank you enough for coming on the podcast. I mean, it was so great listening and hearing your stories and how you guys got this started. And we wish you nothing but the best of luck. Are there any shows in the near future that you guys are thinking about maybe competing in, or you guys just both sort of just taking it easy for a while?
Well, for the first time since I started competing, I'm actually going to take all of next year off before I do my pro debut, because it's kind of a big deal, a pro debut. So I'm going to take a good year off season, and then I'll be back 2021.
I might be hitting the stage the end of 2020, depending on how Supreme goes. But if not, I'll be probably early 2021. If not, September time 2020, probably.
Well, that's awesome, and I'll definitely keep all of the listeners out there updated. And again, thank you guys so much for coming on. And Supreme Minority, I mean, I'll leave a link to all that stuff down below. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.